Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are diving into one of the most surprising and dramatic geopolitical developments that has sent shockwaves through the Middle East and across the world, the historic Sana'a summit, where China and Russia openly backed Yemen, and in doing so created a political storm that is now being felt most severely in Israel, which finds itself facing new challenges and threats that go beyond anything it anticipated. This summit is more than a symbolic gesture. It is a signal that the global balance of power is shifting and shifting quickly. And in order to really understand it, we need to look at the layers of what happened, how it looks from the outside, how it is being felt inside Yemen, how China and Russia are performing on the global stage, what the security implications are for Israel and for the wider region, what makes this alliance different from anything we have seen before, what the costs are for all sides involved, and finally, what this all means for the future of the Middle East and for the world order. Now, at first glance, the exterior view of the Sana'a summit is already striking, because Yemen, a nation that has for years been described as the poorest in the Arab world, a place ravaged by famine, war, and blockade, suddenly became the host of delegations from two of the most powerful nations on earth, China and Russia. For years, the world associated Yemen with humanitarian crisis. But now, for the first time in decades, Yemen was presented on television screens as a stage for global diplomacy. The optics are powerful leaders walking through Sana'a, streets officials shaking hands, banners and flags marking a new era. This is the exterior message. The world sees the East, led by Beijing and Moscow, is ready to directly challenge Western influence in a region that was long thought to be under Washington's firm grip for Israel and its allies. This external picture alone is alarming, because it signals that even nations once dismissed as peripheral can now become the center of international attention under the support of global superpowers. When we shift to the interior view, the picture inside Yemen, the changes are even more important internally. This summit provides the Houthis and their government with legitimacy that was unimaginable only a short time ago. For years, they were described as rebels, insurgents, proxies of Iran, but now they are hosts to China and Russia, two permanent members of the United Nations Security Council. This shift boosts their political standing within Yemen. It strengthens morale among fighters and civilians who feel that years of sacrifice are finally gaining recognition, and it provides them with leverage in negotiations with regional players like Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. Ordinary Yemenis, too, see a glimmer of hope that their nation is no longer ignored by the world, and that perhaps new partnerships can bring economic aid, trade, and even some stability to a country long forgotten by international institutions. This internal transformation is powerful because legitimacy is one of the most important assets in politics, and Yemen has just gained it in an unprecedented way. Moving on to performance, the Sana'a summit was also a performance of global strategy and power projection. China and Russia carefully calculated their moves to show that they are not only capable of supporting allies, but are willing to do so visibly and openly for China. The performance is tied to its Belt and Road Initiative and its grand strategy of securing trade routes. Yemen sits near the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, one of the most critical choke points for global shipping, linking the Indian Ocean with the Mediterranean through the Suez Canal. Control, influence, or even partnership in this region provides China with enormous advantages for energy supplies and trade flows. For Russia, the performance is about resilience, despite sanctions.
Imagine being able to build an app with your name on it, just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44.
And despite its war in Ukraine, Russia, demonstrates that it still has reach in the Middle East, that it can open new doors, and that it can find partners where the West has failed for Yemen itself. The performance is even more symbolic. By hosting such a summit, it projects strength to its population and to its adversaries. It shows that it is not isolated, that it has friends in the highest places, and that it can sit at the global table alongside powers like China and Russia. This performance changes perceptions, and perceptions often shape reality in international politics. But perhaps the most critical dimension of this development is security. And this is where Israel feels the weight most heavily. Israel has long worried that Yemen could be used as a southern front by Iranian-backed forces to threaten its security. The Houthis already have a track record of launching drones and missiles at Saudi Arabia, at UAE targets, and even into the Red Sea now. With the backing of China and Russia, Yemen gains legitimacy and potentially resources that make it a much more formidable actor. The shipping routes of the Red Sea are lifelines of the Red Tree, are lifelines for trade, for imports and for exports, and any instability there directly threatens Israel's economy and security. Now imagine a Yemen backed by China with its vast technological and economic power, and Russia with its military know-how and its willingness to arm partners for Israel. This is a nightmare scenario. It stretches Israel's security concerns from Lebanon in the north, where Hezbollah remains strong, to Gaza in the south, to Syria, where Iranian presence looms, and now to Yemen in the southwest. Across the Red Sea, Israel is surrounded by potential threats on multiple fronts, and its defense and intelligence systems will be tested like never before. The safety environment for Israel is thus rapidly deteriorating, and this explains why the summit is described as causing panic in Tel Aviv. What makes the Sinai summit stand out are its unique qualities. This is not just another regional meeting of like-minded states. This is the first time that both China and Russia publicly and visibly aligned themselves with Yemen, a nation previously sidelined. This is the first time that Yemen is being reframed not as a humanitarian disaster zone, but as a strategic hub with global importance. This is also the first time Israel finds itself facing a coalition that mixes regional hostility with superpower support. It is a unique blend of local and global actors working in tandem, and that combination makes it far more durable than previous alliances. China sees Yemen as a gateway to maritime routes. Russia sees it as a way to expand influence in the Middle East, and Yemen sees it as recognition of its sovereignty. Together, these actors are forging something that is not simply symbolic, but potentially transformative for the region. Of course, this transformation comes at a price, and the costs are steep for all sides. For Israel, the price is increased insecurity along its southern maritime approaches. It will now have to invest heavily in naval forces, missile defense, and intelligence. Gathering in the Red Sea region, resources that could have been used elsewhere will now be diverted to counter a new threat for the United States. The price is losing influence. Washington has already struggled to maintain strong ties with Gulf allies, some of whom are increasingly turning toward China for trade and Russia for military cooperation. The loss of Yemen to the China-Russia orbit represents another blow for the West. For Yemen itself, the price is complex. While it gains recognition and support, it also risks becoming a battlefield in the great power rivalry between East and West. Being backed by global powers may bring aid and investment, but it also makes Yemen a target for pressure or retaliation from Western-aligned states, for China and Russia. The price is also significant. They risk backlash from Washington and its allies. They risk entanglement in one of the most complicated conflicts in the Middle East. and they risk being drawn into local rivalries. But both Beijing and Moscow appear willing to pay this price because the rewards are strategic influence over one of the world's most critical maritime choke points and the ability to showcase their challenge to U.S. dominance. When we step back and look at the broader implications, the Sana'a summit tells us a great deal about the state of the world order. It shows that the Middle East is no longer a chessboard dominated solely by the United States. It is becoming multipolar, with China and Russia carving out significant roles. It shows that smaller nations like Yemen can leverage their position to attract global attention. And it shows that Israel is now facing an environment more hostile and complex than ever before. This development is part of a larger pattern: the rise of the East, the decline of exclusive Western dominance, and the emergence of new alliances that blend local struggles with global competition. In conclusion, the Sana'a summit, where China and Russia openly backed Yemen, is not merely a diplomatic event. It is a turning point that shifts perceptions and realities across the Middle East. It sends a message to Israel that its security environment is deteriorating. It sends a message to Washington that its influence is shrinking. It sends a message to the Yemeni people that their struggle has gained recognition, and it sends a message to the world that the era of unipolarity is over, from the external optics of delegations arriving in Sana'a to the internal strengthening of Yemeni legitimacy, from the performance of China and Russia demonstrating global reach to the security challenges now pressing Israel, from the unique nature of this alliance to the heavy costs borne by all involved. This summit marks the beginning of a new chapter in Middle Eastern and global politics. Israel must now face the reality that Yemen is no longer just a peripheral conflict, but a player backed by two superpowers. China and Russia have proven they can extend influence deep into the Arabian Peninsula, and the West must reckon with the fact that its dominance is no longer assured. What emerges from Sana'a is not just a local shift, but part of a global transformation toward multipolarity. And for Israel, this new reality is cause for real concern.